Good morning. I am Steve Weber. Welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show. And the American Gumption Morning Show, we showcase ordinary individuals living extraordinary lives. And the reason why we like the ordinary, extraordinary is because we find it motivating and inspirational. And I happen to just believe that everybody is both ordinary and extraordinary. So anyway, the purpose of this show is to help those who are awaken. And then once a person's awakened, we like to teach them how to live their life with gumption. So that's what we're all about here. All right. So, hey, welcome to today's show. It's show number 211. It's Tuesday, August 10th. And our guest today is going to be Kristin Wistar, and she's going to tell us all about her life, but who Kristin is. She's a beauty seer, I'm going to put this up here on the, I got a little graphic there. She is a beauty seer, a truth seeker, and a vision keeper. Those are 6 extraordinary words. I love it. Beauty seer, truth seeker, vision keeper. We'll get into that with Kristin in just about 14, 15 minutes from now, right? A quarter past the hour. All righty. So tomorrow, C. Megan Michael is going to join us, and she's going to talk about raising the vibration of the planet one soul at a time, raising the vibration of the planet one soul at a time. And she is a law of attraction person. So I've been part of her Facebook group for the last year and really enjoy the posts that regularly happen. So if you're a law of attraction fan, you'll want to stay tuned for that. And then on Thursday, Julia Stubbe is going to join us, and she is facilitating healing for a new Earth and Earth's beings. She channels galactic energies, and so this is going to be a fascinating conversation. So I'm looking forward to that. Alrighty, so that's what's coming up this week. We've got shows on Wednesday, Thursday with guests, and then Friday probably going to be here. Not sure if I'm going to have a guest or not. So anyway, that's what's happening, and we'll have Kristin coming up in just a minute. Alrighty, now what is today? It's Tuesday. Hey, you guys know what Tuesday is all about. Brandon Schaefer.
Steve Weber. How are you, sir? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing? Hey, you got a new headset and a microphone.
Yeah, I've been doing some calls. When I make calls, I just do it off my headset now. So awesome. I've been using my, these things, the AirPods, but when I'm switching back and forth between my phone, between my computer, it just gets too confusing for the computer, and it flips out and doesn't know what Bluetooth to connect to. So I use a hard wire, and it never goes dead, and it always works perfect. So hopefully you can hear me a little better.
I hear you loud and clear. And as far as confusion goes, I always say if you're not smart and you get confused, it's a lot worse. That was my Gump line. So, hey, us guys want to keep it simple.
100%, man. I like the new haircut too, Steve. It's looking high and tight, man. You're looking good.
Actually, I'm about a week in. I'll be tuning it up here in another 3 or 4 days. So,
oh my goodness! So, but anyway,
what are you bringing to us this morning? What kind of simple business help, simple motivation do you got for us?
I got a good one today, man. And what I'm talking about today is making the most of your exciting and eventful day. I woke up this morning about 6:40 or something else like that. I had a text on my phone. A bombshell went off. About 10 minutes later, I had another bombshell went off. I had all kinds of firecrackers going on. So I immediately came downstairs, and this is what I wrote right here, right? Make the most. And it's probably backwards. It just says, make the most of your exciting and eventful day. And that's what I'm doing, man. I'm just making the best of it. Sometimes you look at a bombshell as a problemtunity. It's a problem with an opportunity. So if a problem comes up, don't look at it as a problem. Look at it as a problemtunity, a problem with an opportunity. There's always There's always opportunities to turn negatives into positives. There's always opportunities to improve yourself. So, but it starts with that mindset of making the most of your exciting and eventful day. Make the most of it. That's what I have for you today, Steve.
I love it. A problem-tunity. You're making up new words as we go along. I love that. So yeah,
Exactly.
Great. And that's it really just begins like right here when something happens, we get to interpret what it means. And if we go, oh man, this always happens, then the energy is just not flowing. But if you go, okay, well, we're going to deal with this, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. So anyway.
Yeah, always look at it from the positive. That's what I do. Always look at it from the positive. And the glass is always half full, not half empty. We could go on for another 4 hours here, which we will live in person when we catch up soon.
There is a rumor that I'll be in Newtown soon, and we're gonna do a face-to-face. So we'll just leave it at that for right now.
Yeah, I'm not gonna have the headset on that day because I'll be yelling and screaming, and we're gonna bring some nice microphones that can get us when we start hooting and hollering and laughing and smiling and everything. So.
All righty. Well, we'll see you next week, Brandon.
All right, Stevie. Thank you, man.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
All righty. Wait, where's that song? Brandon, close it. All right. Thanks, Brandon. SimpleBusinessHelp.com is where you can find Brandon. He's got a team of tech people who will help you if you have technology that doesn't quite connect and talk to each other. That's what Brandon and his team help people with is Simple Business Help. Or if you need marketing and content ideas, his team also does that sort of thing. So check out SimpleBusinessHelp.com. All right. Thanks, Brandon. All righty. So I'm going to just jump right into my monologue because we got a great show coming up here. So the monologue is titled Environmental Influence. And I was raised on the East Coast. And for 22 years, the first 22 years, I was, right here. I'm in the Philadelphia area these days, but this is where I came from. I heard the Philadelphia news, the sports, lived in the suburbs, worked in the city as I became a working age person and attended Catholic schools for 12 years. So that was really the influence that heavily, impacted my life. And I didn't know that at the time. I just thought that was normal. But then as you can kind of look back on it, you can go, oh, well, these were all pretty important environmental influences that, on that initial part of my life. Summer of 1980, I just did my monologue last Friday about summer of 1980. I traveled for 3 months from Memorial Day to Labor Day, went to every national park. That was the first time I really got out there and started seeing the world differently and meeting people and not knowing anybody other than the two guys I was traveling with. But, every day was like a new adventure and you're meeting people and they're from all over the place. And and then of course I was in these national parks and so it was that was influencing me. And to this very day, it influenced me. I went to California the next year and, I have a line here. It says, all the crazies lived in California. And that was, I remember my mother would say that, she didn't say that when I was about to move there. She had said that throughout my whole life, all the crazies are in California. And, you kind of grow up believing that. And then here I am going off to live in that environment. And I guess I considered myself one of the crazies, or at least crazy for heading out there. Maybe adventurous is a better term. But I lived in the Silicon Valley, and that was it was like the beginning days of the Silicon Valley. It wasn't so 1981 when I got there, and it was the Silicon Valley for sure. But I mean, it's completely different today in terms of the technology that's advanced for the last 30 years. But that whole place of technology and change, was an exciting place to be. Here I was in my 20s, and I was just like in an environment where it was all happening. And so that was certainly a influence on me. And it was a massive suburbia. I remember thinking that it was very similar to what I grew up in the Philadelphia area in terms of the single family houses. They were packed together a lot tighter, but they just went on and on and on. There really was. I lived in San Jose at the time. There was a little bit of a downtown, but it was more like just like I said, just that whole environment was like 7 million people, massive suburbia, stretching from an hour south of San Francisco to an hour north of it. And I did move from Santa Clara to downtown San Jose, and I lived in the backyard of a 100-year-old house in a travel trailer that I hooked up, and I was remodeling the house, and that took a couple of years. And so for several years, I was, when I was doing my Forrest Gump thing, I was camping in the backyard. And I remember it was California is a pretty nice environment in terms of the weather goes. So it actually was a fun time of my life. And, like I said, I was that had an impact on me. And from there, I ended up going to Montana. But before I really got the full time in Montana, I was living in both places. I was living part-time in California and part-time in Montana. And that was a good 2.5, 3 years, and kind of going back and forth, and had an apartment in California and a car in California. I had a car and a house in Montana. It was kind of a crazy time, but it was like a way to kind of get my feet wet into, one foot in one place and one foot in the other. So then I finally end up living in Montana. And the first 3 years I was in town. And it was a small town. So first time I ever lived in a small town, as opposed to suburbia. You could be anonymous in California with 7 million people living in the area, but in a small town, suddenly it was like, man, you got to know people and they got to know you, and you stuck out because you were the new person. And so and I remember when I first got there, it's kind of a silly story, but somebody said, oh my God, a couple weeks ago, Tom Hanks was in town looking to buy property here. And I'm like, really? They're telling me about this. And here it turned out it was me, and rumors had started that, small town. So that was kind of a fun thing. So then I only lived in town for about 3 years, and then I moved to a property outside of town. So I was 7.5 miles outside of town, 15-minute drive, but it was like on a dirt road, and it was like 3 houses past me. It was a quiet, out in the country kind of place, even though I was close to town, just 15 minutes, a short little drive. I felt pretty isolated. Now there were neighbors, and so it wasn't like I was completely, but they, it was all like 5-acre properties. And so people were spread out, and, it was kind of it was a nice place. And I lived there for the next 8 years. Now, I decided to leave Montana and go live and work on the road. And so less than 2 years ago, coming up on 2 years, is when I finally left Montana. But there was about a 2-year period where I was getting rid of everything. And Tamara Fleming ended up coaching me. She was my friend and coach and mentor, and she really helped me get rid of things. And that was the first time I really focused on the idea of your environment. And so it was like the place that I had, the physical house that I was living in, and all the physical stuff that I had accumulated and drug up to Montana 20 years or 15 years earlier. And, was just basically sitting there, and it wasn't necessarily serving me, but I had all this stuff. And I learned from Tamara helping me and coaching me how all that stuff was energetically impacting my life. And I had been talking up until now about places, the Philadelphia area growing up, and then California the first years, and then moving, more like the big picture environment, the place that you live. But suddenly I was like tuned into the space that was all around me, and Tamara helped me understand it. And she was helping people transform their lives by, looking at their space, and she had been doing the work. And our guest is going to talk about something very, very similar. So that's why I wanted to share this idea of environmental influence. And I'm focusing more on the space, on the place, the bigger picture places that influenced me. which influence people, but also the spaces, and that's the immediate surroundings of your house, your environment, your living room, your kitchen. How do you arrange things, all that stuff, and so Tamara taught me all about that, and she taught me it as I was getting rid of all the stuff. I mean, I was doing a severe downsize. So anyway, now the last almost 2 years, I've been living back on the East Coast in the area that I was raised, well, not quite exactly the same area, but a little bit close enough, and staying with family. Our 92-year-old father is living on the property here. He's got his apartment next door. And so I get to visit with him every day. And so all of this influences our, place and space have, the last 2 years have been influencing me as I've been back here. And it's been a great, after almost 40 years of being absent, being back in it, I can see these influences in a way that I didn't necessarily see them as I left them. I see them very differently now. So it's been a very healthy time the last 2 years to energetically understand these influences that came about at the early time. So anyway, that's really all I wanted to share with you today. This was more about places, so environmental influence of the places that I lived as opposed to the specific spaces. And our guest, Kristin, I'm going to welcome, and she's going to kind of focus, I think, more on the spaces that we have. So that's the monologue for today. Let's go ahead and welcome Kristin to the show. Good morning, Kristin.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. It's been a busy morning already.
Yeah, I can see that. I loved hearing about all of your travels and going to California with the crazies, because I did a lot of my training in California and San Diego, and I absolutely loved it there when I was training. And I like being one of the crazies, or one of the adventurous people. I always kind of feel like, the different type of person. And a lot of people would say, "Are you from California?" I'm like, "No, I'm from the East Coast, but I'm bringing my stuff here."
Yeah, no, it was good for me to be 22, 23 years old, living in California, where there was this brand new energy, very, very different than the energy that I grew up in. So I liked it. Ultimately I decided I didn't want to stay there, but it was a good, for a young guy, or for any kind of a young person wanting to open their mind, it's a great place.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
So we have 2 rules here, Kristin. You didn't know about this. I'm springing this on you. The 2 rules are, I get to, since you're a first-time guest, I get to read a little bio that tells people who you are. That's not hard for you to follow that rule, is it?
No, I can handle that.
And then the second rule is I get to play the song, the first time guest theme song. So I have a specific song that I play anytime a person is a first time guest. And then if you come back and visit us again in the future, we won't play it. So it's kind of a special deal here. So you ready for all of this?
Yeah, I am.
All righty. So Kristin Wistar is a sacred lifestyle designer. She calls herself, and I'm going to put up back that little thing I had. She calls herself a beauty seer, truth seeker, and vision keeper. I love those words, and we're going to talk about them, what each one of them means. But a beauty seer, truth seeker, and vision keeper. You thought about those words. It wasn't like you just threw a couple words on the page. So very good. All righty. Kristin combines her skills of Feng Shui, interior design, and yoga to empower her clients to thrive in their lives and in their homes. Kristin felt called to this work after getting off a roller coaster of anxiety and depression in her own life that lasted 20 years or thereabouts. So it was a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. She realized that it was not only a transformation of her home that she needed, but also a deeper healing of her soul. Yeah, we don't need to rearrange the furniture. That's like good for what, an afternoon or a week. That doesn't make life transformational changes. She then forged a sacred union between the two. So the union between the home and the soul. So in addition to having a BS in interior design and being a certified Feng Shui expert and certified yoga teacher, she is also a breathwork coach, dowsing, house whispering, Reiki, Q Chang, NLP, and other modalities. You were like collecting like things to just like become an expert at, weren't you?
Yeah.
I love those. Well, we'll talk about the modalities that you know, and how that actually it's like important to have that foundation of many different things, because you know, this transformational work is not like a one size fits all. Now, she is also the creator of the Sacred Space Union Method and the Sacred Space Yoga Method. Kristin is the founder of the Landenberg Loft. It's a sacred retreat space where Kristin and other leaders in the spiritual world nourish, educate, and support their clients to achieve their fullest potential. And we're going to talk about the Landenberg Loft if we have time at the end. We got a lot to talk about. So anyway, Kristin Wistar, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show.
Thanks
for joining us.
Absolutely.
All right, let's play that song and then we'll be ready for you. How's that sound?
All right.
There it is. Have you ever had a marching band welcome you to a broadcast before, Kristin?
No, but I was in a marching band playing the clarinet.
Were?
Yeah.
So was I. Tell me about your experience in the marching band.
Well, I wanted to be one of the pretty girls, like a cheerleader, but I had this big hat, awkward hat on, and I was playing the clarinet. I grew up very musical, so. But I enjoyed it, but yeah, I didn't like the outfit. I didn't like getting all hot, and I wanted to be out in the front dancing.
I was also in the marching band, and I was part of the woodwind section also.
Okay.
I played the saxophone. So there you go.
Cool.
we would have been stuck together in the band. You know, we would have been in the woodwinds together. So.
Exactly. That's so cool.
Very good. Well, good. Well, so you've played John Philip Sousa songs before.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, good. Well, we just like to have a little fun with that. So, hey, let's just go ahead and talk about let me find those banners again. Let's just start out with the here. Where's it at here? Is this it? There it is. Beauty Seer, Truth Seeker, Vision Keeper. I love those 6 words, and I love the connection of it. And you have to think about, each one. But go ahead and just talk about that for a few minutes. And how did you come to be this person?
Interesting. I would say beauty has always been something that I have been drawn to. On so many levels. As a young child, I was always arranging my furniture in my room, and always looking for the right order and balance in my book stand. I'd place everything just perfectly, and I love nature. And I used to collect pictures of cosmopolitan models, and I put them all over my room, when I was really young. And so that was kind of my younger version. And then when I would go to people's homes, some of my friends' parents' homes, if it was kind of an ugly or depressing space, I wouldn't want to be there. I'd just be like, get me out of here. I need to get out of here. But then there was one friend who had an absolutely beautifully remodeled home. And I was young. I remember thinking, I love this space. So I was always energetically tapped into the beauty of a space and how it made me feel energetically. And as I have developed, it's more a sense of that's kind of how I got into interior design. and that it's more a sense of seeing the beauty within someone. So it's not just the outside beauty, it's the inner beauty as well. And being surrounded in a space that's absolutely beautiful inspires people. And it's a quality of God is beauty. So it's another way of, I just see through the eyes of beauty always. I see through the eyes of order, in an environment, within myself. So that's part of it. And then seeing other people, the beauty within them, their souls.
Well, I'll jump in here just for a second, at least.
Yeah.
And so the beauty seer is really that physical, and that's the interior design part of the Feng Shui training. And that's like that physical environment that we have, and how does that influence? I really liked what you said, though, about like being tuned into when you were a little girl, like the energy of a room. You could feel that right from and it wasn't until, like, I remember in 2015, I was at a conference where I was in this horrible room, and I went, I got to get out of here. It was like the first time that I really became aware of energy of the room. And I never noticed it before, but you noticed that right from the get-go. Right from the
get-go, always. It was just something that was just part of me. And like I said, there was a friend who, when I'd go to her house, it was just so energetically depressing. And I would just say, let's go outside or come to my home. And it's funny because you grow up with certain aspects of yourself that you think everyone else feels the same way. And even with my husband, I've taught him so much. He was never like this. He was a mechanic when I met him, and he had dirt under his nail, like the mechanic grease under his nails and stuff. It was just kind of funny that, not that really means anything, but just the influence of a space never really made, he never thought about it until he spent enough time with me. And now I think I've influenced him enough that he's like, oh, that gives me a yucky feeling. I'm like, yep, see?
See, there's hope for us dudes. We can learn, we just need to be, tuned into it a little bit. So
Exactly. Yeah.
So then you said you began the shift to inner beauty, and I'm gonna think that's really that truth seeker. That's really where, like when a person is aligned with their interior, like their inner knowing, their inner source, their inner spirit, when those things are aligned, that's when a beauty of a person really shines through. And so is that what you mean by the truth seeker?
Yeah, and I guess this kind of takes me into my story of how I kind of got started, because I think the truth I needed to find that truth within myself in my journey, as to how I came to truth seeker and vision keeper. And
before we get into that, though, let's keep the high level, and let's just say about the vision keeper. Just say a little tiny bit about that, and then we'll get into the backstory.
Okay, perfect.
It's a fascinating backstory.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so truth seeker definitely is finding the truth within, finding the truth that feels right to you, that's down into the core of who you are, and outside of that programming that we are, that we tend to fall into, shame, fear, suffering, those kinds of things, finding that to bring yourself up and out into the light, and then holding it for yourself and then for others. And then the vision keeper is holding that long-term vision for what you feel the truth is within you, and seeing that vision and holding it and keeping it as for the rest of my life, and for inspiring others to do the same for themselves, and in what their truth and what their vision is for them, their selves. So that's kind of, it's kind of neat, because it's like the transition of where I'm going now between my design business, Feng Shui, heading into other aspects of the things that I want to expand into, and help people with the next stages of their life as well. And so it's just combining all those things.
Yeah, and I don't want to put words in your mouth with this, but I'll do my own interpretation, and then you can modify it as appropriate. But it's one thing to like look at someone's space and say, oh, well, this chair would look nice over here, and this color would go good, and this painting would fit and match with that. And it's quite another thing to do that same work with the idea of who this person is, what their soul is, and where they want to go in their life, and then helping that physical environment match or support what it is that they want to achieve in their life, and eliminating the things that don't fit with that future vision, and then putting more of the stuff that does. So at least that's my interpretation of what you're up to.
Yep, you said it perfectly.
And I told I mentioned my friend Tamara Fleming. You're going to have to meet her because she's doing something very similar, and it's just I went through this, so it was really fun when we got to know each other. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I get what you're doing, and I like it. And I didn't do, I ended up learning about this like when I was getting rid of all this crap that I had that had been. I felt like it was an albatross or a boat anchor, like weighing me down. They were dreams from my past. They were ideas that I had, but I was like, oh my gosh, here I am, 60 years old. And do I really want to do what I had done in my 20s and 30s and carried stuff with me all that time? And ultimately I had to come to the conclusion that no, and it was time to let that go. And anyway, so the idea of looking at individual items and going, do these energetically help me become the person I want to be, or are they just kind of holding me back? This was a fascinating study. So anyway. All righty. Well, what should we get into next? We talked already about your foundation of Feng Shui and interior design. We didn't mention yoga. Go ahead and just talk a little tiny bit about how that fits into what you're doing.
Yeah, I always knew that I wanted to teach something like yoga and or dance. And when I built the Landenberg Loft, that's where I am right now. There's like a big wide opening here, and it was like I heard it's time to learn the yoga, because I could just visualize everybody in this space. And so I just so feel it's so important to connect the body, to be really embodied with our bodies in order to stay as healthy as possible and to evolve spiritually. Because in the past, I think it's been about like, and I've gone through this before, where I've just been so in my head and up here, like going to the other planes, meditating and all that kind of stuff, but not really physically embodying myself. And really we're meant to just be here super grounded, because when we go here, we can just be kind of woo, and live out in this other world, but we need to really be in our physical bodies. And yoga is such a great way to do that. And just the breath alone with the movement, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's just, you don't have to do any crazy poses. It's just so grounding. And the philosophy of yoga is very similar to Feng Shui in a lot of ways. And also just, it's a whole spiritual practice of coming to the oneness. That's really what it's all about. Because they created movement because we are such busy people. We always have to, we're always running around. So we need to actually move our bodies to still our minds enough to then get into that place of quietness where we can connect in. And it's just such a lovely way to connect into source.
I like, what you said about, the stillness and the consciousness. And if you look at all the different things that you're doing, Reiki or NLP or the different modalities, they're all attempting to do, they're all trying to help us get to, like a similar place, but they're just different techniques and different ways of approaching that same kind of a challenge. And so I assume that, as you added these different modalities, they help you when you work with people, because some people, and again, you're always in that idea of space, right? And place. but you're also, working to get the, that person more whole or more connected to their inner being.
Absolutely. It's about the inner home and the outer home. I always talk about that. It's and it's like, what do you work on first, the inner self or the outer space? And it's harder to work within your inner home, to make changes within ourselves. So sometimes the catalyst can be making shifts in your home to help support that inner work that you need to do. And sometimes moving and breathing through yoga or other types of movement, walking, meditations, being out in nature is a way to connect to your inner home. So there's just so many different ways to just come to the same place. And it's so interesting how each one of us, like you said, we're all wired so differently, and there's so many modalities. And I kind of had to get over, like, well, who do I think I am, that I know this or that, or that I can help anyone? It's like, but each one of us has our own individual gifts that we are meant to share. We're meant to really honor within ourselves. And it may not be for everyone, but if you can help one or two people with it or more, that can relate to you and that are kind of in that same frequency, then that's what it's all about. So shining our light in every which way, and honoring all the different ways in which we then get to, I think we're all in this search to find harmony, to find love, to find peace, and to find joy within us. And there's just so many different ways of going about that.
You had a 20-year period where you went through kind of the same problem or the same challenge over many different times. And it sort of was that roller coaster we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to share some of that and give people an idea? Because that, I think, to understand where you are today, go understanding, like, you tried like maybe this modality to fix the problem, or you tried this thing to, and you are doing all these things, and collectively, 20 years later, we can look at it and go, oh, well, they all added up and it's all perfect and it worked out exactly. And we can now say that that's in your past, but go ahead and share the story of what you went through.
Yeah. The story is what led me here, obviously. So I have two children, and I had my interior design business. It was kind of my baby that I started before children, and my life had always been really solid. I was always, just could handle a lot of things. And then I had my first child, and that went pretty smoothly. I was able to still work and have freedom and flexibility with him. And then I had my second child, and in the pregnancy, I started having some complications, and so I was in bed rest for about 2 weeks, and high risk in the hospital and bed rest. And I remember still working, like I had the floor plans on my belly, like lying down, like still, like I got to work with my clients and whatnot. And I had a pretty that my daughter was born premature, and it was a really extreme birth. She was born 40 minutes from the time my water broke in bed to the time I got to the hospital. And I had a very, not a very nice doctor who, when she was born, she basically said, it's a girl. She's missing 2 fingers on her left hand. Sometimes these anomalies come in pairs. And then she asked me if I did drugs. So it was like, bam, bam, bam. Just like my life just went woof. And so as it all turns out, and when you are giving birth, everything's open. All your chakras are open, your emotions, everything. And so anyway, it was a little shocking and scary. And as it turns out, everything was fine with her. She has been one of the strongest young ladies that I know. And it was about 8 months into my after she was born that I decided I had to give up my business because I just couldn't handle the two kids. She did not give me the freedom to take a bottle or anything. She always wanted me. And then I went into about 2 weeks of sickness with strep throat, and I developed an extreme insomnia because the kids were sick, and I hadn't slept for about 2 weeks, and it was like this darkness came over. So it was like I gave up my business, which was my baby. There's always the triggers, right? And there was me feeling sick, and I was weaning her, and hormones were all over the place. And having no sleep for 2 weeks was the worst thing I could have ever experienced, because you can't get any perspective on anything. And it was just as though this blanket of darkness came over me. And I developed something called postpartum depression and OCD in the form of terrible thoughts. So my whole life was turned upside down. And so of course, I had a lot of shame and a lot of fear and like, what the heck is happening to me? And so that's what started my search for trying to heal myself, because I knew who I was solidly. And I always had this connection with God and with Source, but this was so dark and so shameful, because you have these thoughts. It's like, well, where did that come from? But when you have all this lack of sleep, it just, you just can't seem to get your perspective. So that's kind of how that started. And so I just decided I'm going to climb the highest mountain to get myself back, because I know this isn't me. I don't really understand it. I couldn't seem to find people to help me with it. And so that was like the beginning of the journey.
You talked about perspective, and I've never given birth, right? So it's like, I'm imagining that, the moment you give birth is not a good time for a doctor to have a conversation about perspective. And so to be kind of like hit with the idea that you did something wrong. Yeah. And in that particular moment, it was probably, it was a horrible circumstance. Now, the doctor probably wasn't evil and didn't do it like, with the idea of completely turning your life upside down, but that's the ultimate, reality of it. And then you said to 2 weeks without sleep. I mean, you lost that perspective. So how do you, overcome those? I'm just rhetorically asking those. No need to comment on them really, but.
Yeah. I mean, the insomnia continued. So there was, that was the main problem for me, was the anxiety around these thoughts. And then the insomnia was like, it just was like a waterfall that I experienced that was a battle. And every doctor that I went to just wanted to put me on medication and wanted to label me as something. And so I finally, when I just crashed so far, I went on medication, but then I had opened up to all sorts of new possibilities, like past life regression and all these different things that I had never even thought about, or having past lives, because I was raised Christian, so I didn't really believe in any of that. But I had read Many Lives, Many Masters, and that with Brian Weiss, and that really opened me up. Just went into so many different modalities so that I could pull myself off this medication and balance myself off and heal myself. And so that's where all these different modalities came in. And it was really if I wasn't so desperate and in such a dark place to sleep and to just, I was in constant fight or flight. I don't think I would have searched so hard to help myself. So it was this journey of kind of going on and off of medication and feeling really good, and then crashing again, and then having to build myself back up, and then crashing again. And that period lasted over 20 years, believe it or not. Yeah.
And you when we had talked before, you mentioned that there was really like 7 cycles of this, like where you went through this, like, we'll just call it cycles for, however long they lasted. In between those, was there peace, or was it, like you said, you were always in the flight or fright, where you like was it like a year of like kind of torment and then like a year of calm, or how did it work that way? I mean, we don't need to go through all the details.
No, yeah, that's okay. But yeah,
but these seven things, as you can look back on it, I mean, what was the pattern of them?
Yeah, I'm a doer, and I'm a manifesting generator. We'll talk about that at another time. But I like to create, and so I tend to push myself. I'm getting much better at that, but just taking on more probably than I should. And my husband would be like, oh, you better be careful because you don't want to get stressed out. And I didn't like being treated with baby gloves. I'm like, I got this. I'm cool. I'm really cool. But then I would notice I would start to feel a little more anxious and a little more anxious and a little more anxious. And, it's really hard to be in two worlds, the Western world and the Eastern world, or the spiritual and the medical. And so I always felt like I had this dichotomy of this side saying, oh, you shouldn't do that, and this side saying you shouldn't do that. And there was a battle within me, like I shouldn't need this medication. And so I would get off and do all these different things, and then I would crash, and then I would have to go back on medication. And so it was just this roller coaster of things. But yeah, most of the time you probably wouldn't even know that I was dealing with it unless it was a really bad time where I would have to withdraw. And but yeah, so that's kind of how that went. And Feng Shui was one of the things that kind of came up towards the end that I started looking into.
Yeah, I was going to, ask, like, because I asked you when we talked privately, what was it that finally happened at the end where, like, when you went, oh, okay, now this is over, and I feel like it's all, it's finally behind me. How did that, come about, and how does that feel?
Oh, it feels amazing. I just feel so much better. I think it's just a culmination of so many things that I did. And it's just kind of this knowing, this feeling very grounded and settled in my body again. And all the tools in my toolbox are, have helped me get to where I am now. And I'm very aware of when I start to feel like, okay, I think I'm taking on too much. I need to like back off a bit. But I feel like my old self again. And I think 7 there's a book that I started to read, and it was about like these 7 cycles, and it's kind of a spiritual number as far as these cycles go. So I just know it as, it's over, it's done. And it's really time for me. It's been a lot of like a push pull. Like I want to go forward, and I want to share to the world all these things that I've learned, and come out less as an interior designer and more as this enlightened living space type person with all these lessons that I've learned, and go deeper with clients. And then it would be like, yeah, but who am I? So there was just a lot of this back and forth that I had to move past and realize, yeah, this is what my heart and my soul is moving me towards. Because I really felt like when we can be really vulnerable and we can be real about our addiction to suffering and, just all the different issues that we've had, shame and everything else, that is the root cause of so many of our issues. And you can see it in the home. You can see it, how it shows up in your environment too. But it's when you're vulnerable and real with people, then they feel comfortable talking about their stuff with you. And, it's not easy being human. It's not. It's a joy in many ways. And yet it's like, let's be real. This is, especially right now, it's just challenging times. So, yeah.
You've been married for 31 years. Your kids are 22 and 25. You said your husband has been this rock for you. Give him a shout out, because he deserves.
He does. Honestly, we call him the caveman and I'm the oracle. It's just funny. He calls me the oracle. He named me that. And, but he's just so grounded, especially because the loft is built above this separate garage. And so he has a man cave at the bottom, and then his car. So he has motorcycles below, and then his car's underneath this. And then so it's like vroom, vroom, all this kind of, man stuff. And then I'm up here like, like chanting but, we would laugh. It's like using humor to get through life. And I mean, we really are so very different. But I needed him to be super grounded for me because, when I was going off in different, losing myself, he was always that rock to hold me, to bring me back down. And so we've gone through a lot, but we've really learned how to be our individual selves and to take this path together, but allow ourselves to do our things that are separate. That's a whole nother conversation, but yeah.
You mentioned the loft, the Landenberg loft, and
Yeah.
you live in the town of Landenberg, so that's why it's called Landenberg, correct? And so you're I'm going to tell the story my way. You're minding your own business, and he says, "Hey, I want to build a garage and put my boy toys inside the garage," and you're like, "Yeah, well, whatever," and like, the plans for it kind of come out, and it's like this big monstrosity next to the house, and you're kind of like thinking, yeah, well, whatever. And it wasn't like your vision, it was really more his vision. And then like miraculously, like you go, oh my gosh, there's this space up above it all that or somehow it became, your space. And I do have a little video we could play and watch it, but as I'm queuing that up, tell us just a little bit about, what the loft is all about.
Yeah. So the loft is a place for educational empowerment and spiritual nourishment. And it's a place for other leaders and inspired people to come together and just share and love up on the community and collaborate. Really, we're in the age of Aquarius, so it's all about collaboration, like just what you're doing here is you're collaborating by sharing other people. And so I'm starting to do things in the loft itself, and then a lot of it is virtual, and I have a Facebook group, the Landenberg Loft. So it's been this place is very special to me because I decorated it as inspiration of this trip that I took. And it's this sacred union between me, everything that I am now, what I stand for, and what my soul and the space really is, just this vortex of energy that people come and they're just like, wow, this feels so special. So it feels good.
Let's go ahead and I'm going to play this. It's a couple minutes long, so we'll just enjoy that, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Let's see if everything works.
Yeah.
Here it is. Let's see. Is it going to play? There it is.
There we are. Welcome to the Landenberg Loft. Come on in. The funny thing is, I never even intended on building this space. It wasn't until 5 months after the space was built, during construction, that I was able to get up to the 3rd floor. And I thought, wow, this is a lot more special than I thought. And so I snapped a couple pictures and posted them on Facebook, and immediately people started to respond to me saying, Kristin, what is this space? Like, what are you doing with it, and where are you? And it was at that point that I realized, wow, I don't think this is just a space for me. I think this could be a place where I could foster and build community. And it was like it just kind of burst through me. I wasn't even planning on doing it, and I'm so glad that it happened. So that's what led me to creating the Annenberg loft. So I really want this place to be a space for spiritual nourishment and educational empowerment. So I designed this space with healing and beauty in mind, and I use Feng Shui principles to really nourish the mind, body, and spirit. And when we first got started, I placed power symbols and crystals and affirmations in all the walls behind the studs before it was drywalled. And then I placed crystals on the foundation, the four corners of the foundation, to really solidify the energy. And I've positioned certain accessories throughout that are Feng Shui adjustments. For instance, this particular area here, from here over, is the prosperity area. And one of the ways to really amp up the abundance is to place some running water. So I've got this cute little Buddha here that's doing its job for abundance. And over here, there's some more dense energy. So I placed this metal accent, which kind of helps to pierce the heavy energy that particular area has. So it just neutralizes it and it makes it beautiful. It's what I call conscious designing. The whole design is based on kind of an exotic Moroccan bohemian feel, and it all stemmed from a trip that I took to Morocco to a place called Chefchaouen, which is the Blue City. And everything in that city is painted blue, the doors, the walls, the buildings. And so I knew I had to recreate something like that. And I had a carpenter make this door for me. And it's the focal point that everything else comes from. And all the artwork that's in here is photography that I took while I was in Morocco, and I particularly love this one because it's kind of about the journey of life and where it's leading you. And so I feel like the loft is all about the journey of what's next.
I'll go ahead and stop it. I don't know. It was choppy on my end, but I don't know whether sometimes as it goes out, it might be playing, but I'm suspecting it didn't. So we'll just stop it there. But it certainly gives people the idea that this is an inspired spiritual place.
Yeah. It's
and they can go to your website and see the video without it being choppy.
Exactly. Yeah. It's much more fun to watch it when it's not choppy.
Well, very good. So you just had an event there, and you really only opened this up about a year ago, and of course, turned out that people gathering and meeting in person wasn't such a good idea a year ago, and so so it's almost like a year later. It's even though it was ready a year ago, it's now kind of blossoming and coming out.
Yeah, and I just love how it wasn't anything that I was planning. It just And that's what I'm kind of morphing into now after all these years of doing certain things, like, for instance, the interior design, when that started to feel flat to me because it wasn't feeding my soul anymore, because it was just more about, I always had a nice relationship with my clients, but I could never get really deep with them. Then it transitioned to the Feng Shui to work in this really nice, deep way with my clients in their spaces. And go, really, really connect with your space and understand how it influences you in this really, really deep, magical way. And then bringing in the yoga. So now it's like when I do the yoga, it's the Feng Shui of yoga. I actually created something where I kind of bring in you as your inner home and your outer home. And so you do visualizations of breathing more energy into your home and the things that you can do to release more in your body and also in your home. And then the loft is kind of this beautiful place where I can share some of these ideas, do workshops, and go really deep with people on all sorts of rabbit holes of different ways that we can connect in with our highest self. And I'm going to be teaching the Sophia circles, the Sophia code circles, and that's kind of the newest, biggest thing that I'm very excited about. So it's very exciting to offer that, because that's kind of the end alls, I feel like. So all these things, they all kind of feed together. And so with whatever, I work with people and what they're most interested in a sense. And the loft combines it all.
Yeah. Well, so anyone in the Philadelphia area who is looking for a space, a place that they can bring together a group of people, it's obviously, it's not going to accommodate any size crowd. What would be the right size if someone wants to reach out to you? I mean, give an idea of who the right group is that could make use of this.
I would say people that are looking like up to 20 to 25 people max would be what we'd be looking for. And, you can do weekend workshops or just, half day workshops, things like that. I call it kind of like a boutique type of place because I offer a lot of extra things with it, organic teas and coffees and chocolates, and I help promote. So I mean, it's really people that are, typically like-minded, people that are looking to grow and evolve. There's just so many people that want to get in community right now. And, it is a transitionary time right now as far as what people are comfortable with. And, so some people may feel more comfortable doing things virtually, but for those that are interested in gathering, they can decide how many people come. And it just feels like it felt like I had to rip the Band-Aid off after our first lockdown to just finally start to hold something here in the spring, and that just felt so good. So people just want to get together. It's nothing like community.
And if they go to KristinMWistar.com, they can discover all about the loft and see that video that we attempted to play, and they can there's more information about it, and there's a way to contact you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
All righty. Well, good. Well, we're out of time, and we have more to talk about. So we'll have to find another time that we can come back and go specific on some other ideas, because we had kind of thought, gee, let's keep this interview as sort of what's the backstory, who are you? But there's really more that you can offer. And I know the Sophia Code is, one of those things that we could probably spend a whole session talking about that and what you're doing with that. And, more about the Landenberg Loft and other areas that we could find common ground on and go deeper, which is what, we're here trying to help people who are awaken and just be more in touch with their own self. And if their space supports that, then this is a good thing.
Absolutely. Yes.
All righty. Well, I'll give you the last word. What would you like to say as we say goodbye this time?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm just thrilled that you had me on. I really appreciate it. And I know for everyone that we've been going through a challenging time, but just have faith, go deep within, know that there's others like you that are there to help support and guide you. And it's just, we're all in this together, right? It's all about shining our light and our love and supporting each other, however that looks, whether it's something in your home or having a conversation with someone or getting together with a friend or getting in community. It's like we all have to stick together.
Well, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Kristin. Please come back again.
I would love to, Steve. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kristin, for joining us this morning. That was fun. I knew we weren't going to get through everything we wanted to talk about, but that's okay. We'll find a time when we can have Kristin come back and share a little bit more. So that's it. We're going to wrap up here. Tomorrow, I have C. Megan Michael, who's going to talk about raising the vibration of the planet one soul at a time. And she really is a law of attraction person. So she's right up my alley in terms of that whole positivity and that great mindset. And then Julia Stubbe on Thursday, facilitating healing for a new earth and for her beings. And she is a galactic channeler. So that's going to be interesting. All righty. Well, have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you folks tomorrow.